Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
All right, because I want to make sure that my math does not impede your ability to understand what I'm saying. I am Mary Mitchell, and I welcome you to All Souls Church of Braintree. As you know, our summer services are joining people in our parish hall together with people who are accessing the service virtually through Zoom. Hello out there. We have all been learning together in this endeavor, and I cannot tell you, it really takes a lot of mental gyration to figure out how everything works together. And we are all learning together in this endeavor, and we hope to continue expanding our understanding of what's possible and what is not possible. Virtual attendees can access the order of service through a link that I'm hoping that Alicia might be able to provide on the church website or in the chat. Please remain on mute unless you are speaking if you're virtual. The service will be recorded, I believe, but will not be shared to the general public. Please contact the church office if you would like to receive the link to the edited video. An offering basket has been placed on this part in the front for your donations. Thank you for your generous contributions to support the programs and staff that bring us together. If you are joining us on Zoom, you may donate by going to the donate address, which may also be in the chat or on the church website. And now is the time to take a breath. And it is time to light the chalice and green candle. I invite Don to come forward for that.
With the chalice lighting, this is Letting Go by J. Wolin. We are a people of holding on. Oh, are we a people of holding on or letting go? This is a question. Holding on to rigid ideas or letting go and opening our minds and our hearts to something new. Holding on to certainty of how things should be, or letting go and living with the uncertainty of new ways of being in the world. Holding on to what makes us comfortable, or letting go so we can grow, which can be uncomfortable. Holding on to what makes us safe, or letting go to make room to help others feel safe. With this flame, this symbol of our religion, let it be a symbol of burning up the ties that hold us back from being our true self and reaching our true potential. Let it be a symbol of lighting a new way for us into a better tomorrow. And let it be a symbol of letting go. Because holding on too long and too tightly is never good for the soul. And we light our green candle, symbolic of our commitment to being a green sanctuary congregation. May both these flames call us to kinship with and great care for the earth and her living creatures.
Thank you, Don. At All Souls, we have resolved to use our summer services to begin the practice of reading the opening sentence of our draft covenant each Sunday. Our covenant offers specific expectations for behaviors that will build and strengthen our lives in community. The entire draft covenant is printed on your orders of service, and I'll bet they didn't get put out. So if you will, just give me 1 second. So many things, here we are. Thank you. All right, so now that you have your orders of service, so you know what we're doing today,
The entire draft covenant is printed on the second page of that document. So it is a draft, and your suggestions are welcome. And now let us read together the revised initial sentence of the draft covenant, which appears in your order of service. We covenant to create a caring, affirming, and inclusive community that invites us to become our best selves. Thank you. Now is the time for joys and concerns. If you have a heartfelt milestone, joy, or sorrow you'd like to share, please come forward to the microphone. You can use this microphone, and if you are joining virtually, you can unmute, wave your real hand, or raise your virtual hand, or type a message in the chat, and we will read it aloud. And this segment of this service will not be included in whatever recordings are made available. And if you want to share, please take a stand in to wait your turn till the next person speaks. For all the sorrows and all the joys spoken aloud and held quietly in our hearts, we drop one final stone. And now, prepare for the main event. I want to credit Don Swanson for putting this TED Talk on our radar screen. Thandiwe Newton is an award-winning English actress. She played the title role in the 1998 movie adaptation of Toni Morrison's Beloved, and she played Condoleezza Rice in Oliver Stone's 2008 biography of President George W. Bush, titled W. She refers to both of these roles in her talk. And with our technical people, the video will soon be shown.
Embracing otherness. When I first heard this theme, I thought, well, embracing otherness is embracing myself. And the journey to that place of understanding and acceptance has been an interesting one for me. And it's given me an insight into the whole notion of self, which I think is worth sharing with you today. We each have a self, but I don't think that we're born with one. You know how newborn babies believe they're part of everything, they're not separate. Well, that fundamental sense of oneness is lost on us very quickly. It's like that initial stage is over. Oneness, infancy, unformed, primitive. It's no longer valid or real. What is real is separateness. And at some point in early babyhood, the idea of self starts to form. Our little portion of oneness is given a name, is told all kinds of things about itself. And these details, opinions, and ideas become facts, which go towards building ourselves, our identity. And that self becomes the vehicle for navigating our social world. But the self is a projection based on other people's projections. Is it who we really are, or who we really want to be, or should be? So this whole interaction with self and identity was a very difficult one for me growing up. The self that I attempted to take out into the world was rejected over and over again. And my panic at not having a self that fit, and the confusion that came from myself being rejected, created anxiety, shame, and hopelessness, which kind of defined me for a long time. But in retrospect, the destruction of myself was so repetitive that I started to see a pattern. The self changed, got affected, broken, destroyed, but another one would evolve. Sometimes stronger, sometimes hateful, sometimes not wanting to be there at all. The self was not constant. And how many times would myself have to die before I realized that it was never alive in the first place? I grew up on the coast of England in the 70s. My dad is white from Cornwall, and my mum is black from Zimbabwe. Even the idea of us as a family was challenging to most people. But nature had its wicked way, and brown babies were born. But from about the age of 5, I was aware that I didn't fit. I was the black atheist kid in the all-white Catholic school run by nuns. I was an anomaly. And myself was rooting around for definition, trying to plug in. Because the self likes to fit, to see itself replicated, to belong. That confirms its existence and its importance. And it is important. It has an extremely important function. Without it, we literally can't interface with others. We can't hatch plans and climb that stairway of popularity, of success. But my skin color wasn't right. My hair wasn't right. My history wasn't right. Myself became defined by otherness, which meant that in that social world, I didn't really exist. And I was other before being anything else, even before being a girl. I was a noticeable nobody. Another world was opening up around this time: performance and dancing. That nagging dread of selfhood didn't exist when I was dancing. I'd literally lose myself. And I was a really good dancer. I would put all my emotional expression into my dancing. I could be in the movement in a way that I wasn't able to be in my real life, in myself. And at 16, I stumbled across another opportunity, and I earned my first acting role in a film. I can hardly find the words to describe the peace I felt when I was acting. My dysfunctional self could actually plug in to another self, not my own, and it felt so good. It was the first time that I existed inside a fully functioning self, one that I controlled, that I steered, that I gave life to. But the shooting day would end, and I'd return to my gnarly, awkward self. By 19, I was a fully fledged movie actor, but still searching for definition. I applied to read anthropology at university. Dr. Phyllis Lee gave me my interview, and she asked me, how would you define race? Well, I thought I had the answer to that one. And I said, skin color. So biology, genetics, she said. Because Thandi, that's not accurate, because there's actually more genetic difference between a black Kenyan and a black Ugandan than there is between a black Kenyan and, say, a white Norwegian. Because we all stem from Africa, so in Africa, there's been more time to create genetic diversity. In other words, race has no basis in biological or scientific fact. On the one hand, result, right? On the other hand, my definition of self just lost a huge chunk of its credibility. But what was credible, what is biological and scientific fact, is that we all stem from Africa. In fact, from a woman called mitochondrial Eve, who lived 160,000 years ago. And race is an illegitimate concept which our selves have created based on fear and ignorance. Strangely, these revelations didn't cure my low self-esteem. That feeling of otherness, my desire to disappear, was still very powerful. I had a degree from Cambridge. I had a thriving career, but my self was a car crash. And I wound up with bulimia and on a therapist's couch. And of course I did. I still believed myself was all I was. I still valued self-worth above all other worth. And what was there to suggest otherwise? We've created entire value systems and a physical reality to support the worth of self. Look at the industry for self-image and the jobs it creates, the revenue it turns over. We'd be right in assuming that the self is an actual living thing, but it's not. It's a projection which our clever brains create in order to cheat ourselves from the reality of death. But there is something that can give the self ultimate and infinite connection. And that thing is oneness, our essence. The self's struggle for authenticity and definition will never end unless it's connected to its creator, to you and to me. And that can happen with awareness. Awareness of the reality of oneness and the projection of selfhood. For a start, we can think about all the times when we do lose ourselves. It happens when I dance, when I'm acting. I'm earthed in my essence, and myself is suspended. In those moments, I'm connected to everything: the ground, the air, the sounds, the energy from the audience. All my senses are alert and alive, in much the same way as an infant might feel, that feeling of oneness. And when I'm acting a role, I inhabit another self, and I give it life for a while. Because when the self is suspended, so is divisiveness and judgment. And I've played everything from vengeful ghost in the time of slavery to Secretary of State in 2004. And no matter how other these selves might be, they're all related in me. And I honestly believe the key to my success as an actor and my progress as a person has been the very lack of self that used to make me feel so anxious and insecure. I always wondered why I could feel others' pain so deeply, why I could recognize the somebody in the nobody. It's because I didn't have a self to get in the way. I thought I lacked substance. And the fact that I could feel others meant that I had nothing of myself to feel. The thing that was a source of shame was actually a source of enlightenment. And when I realized and really understood that myself is a projection and that it has a function, a funny thing happened. I stopped giving it so much authority. I give it its due. I take it to therapy. I've become very familiar with its dysfunctional behavior. But I'm not ashamed of myself. In fact, I respect myself and its function. And over time, and with practice, I've tried to live more and more from my essence. And if you can do that, incredible things happen. I was in Congo in February, dancing and celebrating with women who've survived the destruction of their selves in literally unthinkable ways. Destroyed because other brutalized, psychopathic selves all over that beautiful land are fueling ourselves' addiction to iPods, pads, and bling, which further disconnect ourselves from ever feeling their pain, their suffering, their death. Because, hey, if we're all living in ourselves and mistaking it for life, then we're devaluing and desensitizing life. And in that disconnected state, yeah, we can build factory farms with no windows, destroy marine life, and use rape as a weapon of war. So here's a note to self. The cracks have started to show in our constructed world, and oceans will continue to surge through the cracks, and oil, and blood, rivers of it. Crucially, we haven't been figuring out how to live in oneness with the earth and every other living thing. We've just been insanely trying to figure out how to live with each other, billions of each other. Only we're not living with each other. Our crazy selves are living with each other and perpetuating an epidemic of disconnection. Let's live with each other and take it a breath at a time. If we can get under that heavy self, light a torch of awareness and find our essence, our connection to the infinite and every other living thing. We knew it from the day we were born. Let's not be freaked out by our bountiful nothingness. It's more a reality than the ones ourselves have created. Imagine what kind of existence we can have if we honor inevitable death of self, appreciate the privilege of life, and marvel at what comes next. Simple awareness is where it begins. Thank you for listening.
There is a lot in this talk to digest, so I thought I'd throw out a few thoughts and questions to get you started thinking about ways that her presentation might relate to your own experiences in your lives. I will ask a question, give you some time to reflect, and actually, I think I'm going to read maybe a couple of them at a time, and just so people can reflect on the sentence. And at some point, I'll invite people who might like to share something to do so. But my first thought is Thandiwe Newton talks about being rejected over and over again. She describes her difficulty fitting in and observes that the self likes to fit, to see itself replicated, to belong. That confirms its existence and its importance. It has an extremely important function. Without it, we literally cannot interface with others. And so my question is, what parts of yourself have you changed in order to fit in? The second thought. At one point in her talk, Newton describes moments in which she is connected to everything. In these moments, she says, all her senses are alert and alive in much the same way as an infant might feel, that feeling of oneness. My question to you is, have you ever felt connected to everything in this way? If so, what were you doing when this happened? My third question is, Newton says that herself is a projection and it has a function. When she realized that, she stopped giving it so much authority. Is yourself that voice in your head that keeps telling you what to do and what not to do? Do you always trust what the voice in your head is telling you? And having had a time to reflect, I think I'll give a little time for anybody who might want to share what might have come up for them in these at this talk or in these reflections. I know some of it can be personal, so if you choose not to share, that's totally fine. I will share that for me, I remember reading a book a few years ago that said something about you can't trust the voice in your head to tell you the truth. And that was like, oh, what? I was like blown away. It's like, okay, all that negative stuff that, that's yammering, you should have done that, you should have done that, why didn't you do that? It's like, yeah, you don't trust that. It's just, that's okay. And to be able to say that and recognize it for what it was a big, I don't know, it was a big, I wouldn't call it a breakthrough, but it was an interesting new perspective on life. Anybody online want to share anything? Okay. My next question is, Newton describes how she inhabits another self when she is acting. Have you ever felt that you were inhabiting a different self than who you thought you were? Lynn, you want to join us up here at the mic?
Just a reflection. I remember being closer. Oh, there we go. Okay. Just a reflection. I remember being on a plane going on vacation, and I was going by myself to the Caribbean. And I was traveling alone because none of my friends could. I was going diving. And I remember being on the plane thinking, I can really be anybody because nobody here knows me. And I'm not living up to anyone else's expectations of who I am or my own expectations. And not that I was any different really while I was there, but it was just sort of a revelation to me of how much we sometimes we are affected by people's expectations of us, of who we are and how we act. So that was sort of interesting to me.
Alicia has something she'd like to say.
Okay.
Hi guys, sorry, I was muted. So hang on, I will. So I was going to say that as a child in grade and middle school, much like the rest of us, I think, it was my experience that if you didn't fit in, then you weren't one of the crowd and you were then subject to just meanness, I would say. And so as a result of that, much like I'm sure many of us, I would strip away what didn't fit in with everybody else. And thankfully, as you grow, you sort of realize that that wasn't what you wanted to be and that you didn't want to be a cookie cutter of everybody else. So you bring back, I call it quirkiness. You bring back some of your quirkiness. But I think that many of us have lost parts of that would have been embraced if we were allowed to not be part of that experience. And I'll say that I've seen a lot of that change in my kids coming up through grade and middle school, where children are allowed to be different and they don't have to all be the same. And that the teachers and the administration is starting to experience the understanding that you need to encourage children to not be like that. But I think when I was younger, certainly, and I would assume when any of you guys were younger, that it was the case that if you didn't fit in, then you were either ostracized or pounded until you fit in, I guess.
Thank you. I think, that I'm thinking about that middle school time. I think you mentioned that, Alicia, like, boy, that is a rough time when my recollection, both for me and for my kids, when it seems that yourself is just, starting to develop and like saying, who am I? And the social pressure to conform is, is really phenomenal.
And I do see it as a survival technique for humans, that it's a very strong, she says, the self likes to fit in. That's what it wants to do. And it's as survival, if you go back to, the way back when we were, just developing as humans. If you didn't have your group to support you, you were very vulnerable with, the lions and tigers or whatever threats there were out there. You needed that, that connection. And then even the act of shunning is something that is very powerful punishment in some social groups. Okay, another question. Are you ready? Newton says that in our crazy selves are living with each other and perpetuating an epidemic of disconnection. Do you agree that our modern tech-filled way of life is devaluing and desensitizing life? Any thoughts? I just want to say I'm very grateful that our technological way of life has just stopped outside our windows here. There was somebody mowing a lawn. Oh, it just started up again. There was a brief moment of silence. It was just delicious. Okay, well, after any last thoughts, I'm going to close it up with the video. Any last comments that want to be made online? Okay. I thank you for your attention, for your thoughts, and for contemplating these questions. We're going to extinguish the chalice now with a song from Celine Dion.
When I was young, I never needed anyone, and making love was just fun. Those days are gone. Living alone, I think of all the friends I've known. But when I dial the telephone, nobody's home. Sometimes I feel so insecure, and love so distant and obscure remains the cure.
announcements are on your order of service. I'm sorry. I thought I was over. Okay. Concert this afternoon. Judy Crubble is playing American piano music, ragtime, jazz, and Gershwin at Fuller Village. So that's at 3 o'clock today. Yeah, it's in Milton. Connection Circle at 3:30 on Monday. Sunday service and music committee meets on Thursday at 5:30 on Zoom. Connection Circle on Friday at 10. Maureen Crimmins is going to be selecting and sharing an article, human interest article for our program. Next Sunday, Andy Pearce is going to be presenting the program at 10:30 here. On Monday, Board of Trustees meets at 6:30. 2 weeks from yesterday is the meet and greet picnic with Reverend Bo Rivers, who officially is on staff today. That's at 3 o'clock on the church lawn, picnic. And then 2 weeks from today, Diane Doucette and Jane Fogg are doing the presenting. And after that service, there'll be a yard sale planning meeting right after the service. So that's what's on our docket. Jane. Thank you. Jane reminds me that so Joe is going to be here at the church for the picnic for Reverend Bo on the 14th at 2. He'll be here to set up and would invite any volunteers to join him. And we also have cards for Reverend Bo, welcome cards for people to sign to welcome Reverend Bo to the church, and that's on the table back there if you haven't seen it. And there's also sign-up sheets for the yard sale. Are there any other announcements? Tom, did you have something about the yard sale? No? Okay.